You know what I want to see? A movie with, well, not just a witch, but a witch, a house, a clock, and a definition of the word indomitable. Wait, what? Such a movie exists? Welcome to Teacup For One.
I'm indomitable.
My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. And today, we're discussing a film that I think only I've seen, or at the very least, only I liked. The 2018 children's fantasy horror film, The House with a Clock in Its Walls, starring Cate Blanchett and Jack Black. Now this is going to be a little bit of a different video. It's really just more of a conventional review because most of the movies that I'm talking about for my October Spooky Movie Marathon are films that I know people have already seen, they already have ideas on, and then I just like to discuss those ideas. But really, I'm just here to tell you that this is a movie that I really like and I think deserves to be given a chance. The House with a Clock in Its Walls is based on the 1973 novel of the same name by John Bellairs about a recently orphaned boy named Louis Barneveld who goes to live with his Uncle Jonathan. He eventually learns that his Uncle Jonathan and his Uncle Jonathan's platonic best friend and neighbor Mrs. Zimmerman are both witches, and that Uncle Jonathan's house has a clock hidden somewhere in its walls. Hence the title. The house is the title character. Get it? Anyway, the clock is counting down to the apocalypse, and along the way, Louis dabbles in necromancy and accidentally raises the dead. Now, this movie is the epitome of everything that I want from a fun Halloween film. It's got magic, it's got living jack-o'-lanterns, it has some legit scares, and it's all wrapped up into this, absolutely delightful gothic little package. And I should preface this by saying that I was a huge fan of these books growing up. Yes, books. It's a series. Yeah, but honestly, the Louis Barneveld books are what I read while I was waiting a year and a half, sometimes 2 years for a new Harry Potter book to release. And on that note, if you are looking to take a break from reading Harry Potter for any reason whatsoever, I highly recommend taking a look at the work of John Bellairs. His books have a totally different brand of magic to them. There isn't some secret magical wizarding world. In the world of John Bellairs, magic exists in our ordinary, everyday, mundane lives, and it's something that can be learned by anyone, kind of like with Doctor Strange. And the really cool thing with The House and the Clock in Its Walls is that it puts an emphasis on the fact that everyone has their own unique brand of magic, and they have to figure out what that is before they can channel it. His books really give a life to all the magic in plain sight that you want to believe in when you're a kid. Like when you go into a basement and you see a bunch of creepy dolls and you think, oh no, they must be alive. In his books, they're alive. When you go into a graveyard and you imagine, what if I came here at midnight with the dead raise? In his books, yes they do. Or you have a creepy old house in your neighborhood and you just think to yourself, I bet that house is haunted, or I bet that house has a clock embedded in its walls that's counting down to the apocalypse. Well, lucky for you, in this book, that's the case. Anyway, I'm clearly biased with this movie, and admittedly, I haven't read the books in over 20 years, but I was so excited when this film came out, and when I went to see it, it wasn't exactly what I expected, but it was pretty darn close. First of all, I loved Owen Vaccaro as Louis. I think he had the perfect blend of vulnerability and weirdness needed for the character. Cate Blanchett, unsurprisingly, is fantastic as Mrs. Zimmerman. Is Cate Blanchett actually good, or is she just tall? I personally think she's actually quite good. I don't remember if they delved as deeply into Mrs. Zimmerman's personal history surrounding her family in the books as they do in the film, but I think the movie handles her motivations and her character history beautifully. She wasn't exactly what I pictured for Mrs. Zimmerman when I was reading the books, but Eli Roth actually touched on that and said that they drew a lot of her character inspiration from the Edward Gorey illustrations of her as opposed to how she's described in the books. And that whole choice to go in that direction with her character as opposed to what's described by Bellairs is kind of a running theme with this movie, but we'll get to that. And then we have Jack Black as Uncle Jonathan. Now, Jack Black approaches this role with his unique, characteristic Jack Black style, which isn't exactly how I pictured Uncle Jonathan. I always thought he was more of a quietly eccentric character. But, again, if you go back to the original story, this is a story about black magic and raising the dead, so I guess I do understand the choice and the need to embed a bit more humor into the story, and I think Jack Black is a really great person to ground that. He's close enough to the character from the books, and he's a strong enough actor to ground the movie while still bringing some much-needed levity to the story so that it can be appealing to families and kids. However, I do think the movie leans a little too far into that style of humor, and that created a bit of a tonal disconnect, which would have been confusing to anyone watching this movie having no context, because the film does still follow the basic plot points. This is a story about a kid who's dealing with grief, who's dabbling in necromancy to learn how to raise the dead, and then to lighten it up a little bit, Eli Roth decided to throw in a farting lion topiary. Now, with that said, not all of the additions are misguided. The movie fleshes out the antagonist really effectively, and it even shows us this evil power couple that the book only mentions. And I can't remember if this is present in the novel or not, but the film, at least, doesn't shy away from examining how World War II affected all of the adult characters and shaped them into the people that Lewis meets at the beginning of the film. Because really, at its heart, this whole movie, it's a story about grief and recovery. All of the key characters are somehow affected by loss, which is shaping and affecting their actions. And the whole movie is about these characters learning how to find themselves again after suffering these losses. So yes, the movie might be a little tonally confused, but overall I feel like it really taps into the heart, the mystery, and the magic that made me love these books so much in the first place. So while I absolutely recommend watching this movie, I would actually recommend going and reading the books first, because you will not be disappointed. But for now, friends, that concludes yet another episode of Teacup For One. Let me know in the comment section down below. Have you read any of John Bellairs' books? And did you think House with a Clock in Its Walls was a good adaptation? Also, if you want to follow me for the rest of my Halloween movie marathon, but you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, you're really not listening to me. But don't worry, you're getting another chance right now. If you want to subscribe, it's super easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup For One. Go read a book by John Bellairs.